So, excuse me, I'm a bit distracted by the stuff. So basically, to answer the question that was asked about being psychic, the idea that came to mind was this, what's about to follow that is, and I want you to share with me what you know of what I'm about to discuss so that we can just close it off. So I'm basically going to speak about my experience as to how I see being psychic. This isn't a way to prove it per se, but it certainly is a way to explain what I have experienced in its totality, in my experience, but then what I've learned since that breaks down or at least in some way relates to what it is that I'm speaking of and perhaps would in some way explain what it is I'm speaking of. So here goes. So when you were, excuse me, I've done something a bit dodgy here. Give me a moment. Right. So when we were talking about energy and how stuff moves for me and how is it that you're able to predict basically what's coming next. And even though it's not something that I say, oh, that's going to happen next, I may make a mention that then shows itself later on down the line, or something that I have no knowledge is even relevant to the person standing in front of me, but then makes itself apparent some point down the line, whether that be minutes, months, days, years, but not always in the future, but mainly in the future when it comes to the psychic ability. But this applies also to what we consider mediumship as well. So the way that energy moves for me, energy doesn't move for me. What I mean is the way I perceive the energy that I work with to basically show itself is this, right? So I was thinking of how to explain it to you, and I remember when we were speaking about how come, Chanel, you hear babies and how can you understand what babies are saying? And I'm like, I don't actually understand their words, but I understand their root. So what I mean by that is when we look at the totem of a person, i.e. the layers that I was speaking of a person and their personalities and who they inherit that from, their legacy, their inheritance, their ancestry, their genetics, their DNA. Basically, I recognise that which I speak to. And so when it comes to a baby, even though they may not be articulating themselves, I can decipher in some ways what the adult versions, whether has been or to come, are trying to convey, what they're trying to communicate. And so when I was trying to figure out how to explain this to you, I was thinking to myself, well, really what it is I see in spaces. And so where you may have, here's an example. We were singing with my nephew the other day, the alphabet song, A, B, C, D, etc. So, you know, when you're like A, B, C, D, and usually children start joining in later on down the line. Now, it may be that they start at B, they may start at D, whatever the letter is, they sometimes go ahead of you. So you may do A, B, C, and you can see the excitement on their face, and then they go D, and they try to get ahead of you. Well, that's essentially what happens for me. I have the alphabet mnemonic in my head as notes. And so where a person who speaks English to me, where there may be a variance in those notes, I can match the missing child with the person in front of me. If probably doesn't make sense, but it makes sense to me. Here's another example. If you start EastEnders as an example and you go do, 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 who does not know the notes after that? Even if they don't really watch EastEnders, everyone has an idea. It's an anchoring, it's a mnemonic. And so the notes of EastEnders and the alphabet are basically my baselines for an entire octave. And where there are notes missing in what a person is saying to me or what a person is vibrating at in front of me, then I will find the matching notes, the harmonious notes in, say, the child. But it's become so inherent, I suppose, or so practiced. I don't know what it is, but I hear it the other way around as well. So I don't read, when I say hear, I don't necessarily mean with my hearing, although it could be, but that's the easiest way that I've broken it down for myself. It's more than hearing, it's really sensing an entire vibration, seeing the entire puzzle and working out what each piece means across the senses. So anyway, back to this spacing that I recognise. I do it with my numerology, I do it with tarot, I do it with everything. Everything seems to work with the difference, the bits in between. So let me just get you onto this screen. All right, so I was looking at how to explain this to you, and came up with this idea, which is not a new one for me. Everything that I see is in a circle. And when I say see, let's not assume that it's just with my eyes. When I say see, really, for some it could be sense, for some it could be know. It's an intuitive thing, but basically my perception, everything works in circles. So when I'm working stuff out, I literally draw a circle and work it out. I may do a line, I may do a grid like I did in another reading, but I still end up working back to the circle because everything is cyclical for me. Everything is an invitation for completion. It's particularly when you're dealing with like the living and the dead. But anyway, right. So I did this circle, and I've done this several times. So it clearly means something to me. And these little markers here, they're just like literally the clock. So 12 markers across a circle, just to exemplify what it is that I mean. So when I was doing this circle thing, I'd done circle things loads of times before this, but I just thought to myself, how am I going to make this like relatable for you? And then I was thinking, I've heard circle of fifths. What is that? I'm no music theorist, but I looked up what in layman's terms circle of fifths is. Still have no idea what it is, but what I got from it was pretty similar to what I'm saying now, perhaps in a more refined language, but it was basically saying that everything in harmony across this circle of fifths works in an accordant way, in a harmonizing way. And it's basically a great technique, a great methodology, a great template, as it were, for composers and musicians to perhaps be inspired through new music, because you can map the note sequences through this circle of fifths. I don't know, but anyway, I don't intend on touching it, but I do want that to be something that you look at, because maybe it's something that we will understand more of what I'm trying to say through. So anyway, so these 12 markers, even if it's not music, like everyone knows what a clock looks like, right? Well, most normal people know what an analog clock looks like, but then today's technology. Anyway, right? So so we have the 12 markers, and I'm going to choose a different colour. I'm going to go with blue. And this is the way that I see energy. So we'll start at 12, just because we have a point of reference there. So I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and there's my second point of energy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to my third, and I keep going until I've filled every one of those 12. I think I've done this right. One, two, three, four, 5. Oh, hang on. Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 12, because that's 1. Right, okay. And so when we've mapped it in terms of the circle of fifths, yeah, anyway, then what I do is I go from 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, and etc., going along the sequence of numbers that we understand to be the correct order as we are taught. So I don't know the full, I know the entire octave goes around this 12s, because it includes flats and sharps as well. Or is it just sharps? Anyway, regardless of what way the circle of fifths works, I know that it works to a measurement of 12. And I just wanted to show that you see your energy with musical notes. I see mine with this shape here. And it kind of, I don't go through that process when I'm speaking with someone or working with something or someone. I just know that I see this entire shape. And when I say see this entire shape, I don't see a lotus or whatever the heck this is meant to be. I just know that these are the components of what I'm speaking with. These are the components of whatever it is that has presented itself. But then those components can take the form of smell, it can take the form of colour, it can take the form of sound. Whatever sense it is, it will show itself as a pattern within that sense. But then if there is a hole in that pattern, if there is a discrepancy, if there is discordance, if there's a gap, then I sense it. So I may not see it, but I sense it. And then I will be able to, recognize the discrepancy from my own experience, and then be able to map what spirit it links to. I.e., if I know someone who has a certain trait, has a certain characteristic, has certain attributes, then the likelihood is that the person who I'm speaking with or reading for has that type of person in their life. So yeah, that's the way that I see it. You see notes or hear notes. I see auras, I suppose. That's one way to describe it as well, because with the 12 markers around the circle, if you create a circle of 8, let's say, and you do, I think maybe three rounds instead of the 5 count, then you'll find that you can use colours as well. So that would be the 7 colours that we understand them to be in the rainbow, but then the 8th segment being black and white, the middle being black and the 8th segment being white. And that also relates to the eye, in my view. So it can expand into lots of different patterns, but patterns is what they are. So when people speak of being psychic, it's no different to being a forecaster or being an analyst or even being a statistician is what I'm trying to say. You're basically forecasting based upon pattern recognition. And so I think that we need to demystify the whole idea that it's a gift, or even giving it the word psychic or romanticizing the word psychic. There is a scientific aspect to it which should be taken seriously, because there's a lot that can be gained from it. And I found that even though I'm not considered scientifically minded or qualified, what I do love and where my passion lies certainly has scientific alignment, if you like, or relative in a way. And so perhaps it's something that we should open up education on and allow people to not feel stupid or feel alienated because they don't have a gift that can actually be scientifically explained. So yeah, so that's what I'm seeing at the moment. I'll leave this with you and perhaps we can discuss it further. Good luck.